Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura. And when we travel and do hand sewing, it's very important to keep track of those little sewing needles and the little snips to go with them. Well, I have a really cute project that's going to keep everything organized that we're going to need. And it's a free downloadable pattern. The pattern is from Zebra Patterns, and it's this little needle take-along kit. And if you're a stamp collector, it uses her stamp panels. These little stamp panels can be bought in quilting stores, fabric stores, and different places. You can also buy them from the website. And there's all different designs, different places. So if you're a stamp collector, this is a lot of fun to collect. You can use any charm pack, but I'm going to use this really cute little stamp because I love stamps. The project is like a book. So we need one piece of fabric for the cover and 6 pieces of fabric to finish the book off. And these are 5-inch squares. We will need a couple of pieces of some sew-in foam, or you can even use scrap batting. And to close the book, we're going to need a little bit of ribbon, and we'll need about 20 inches. And all the directions are in the downloadable pattern. So we're going to need a total of 7 5-inch squares. This is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to trim it down to be 5 inches. Throughout this project, we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And the first thing we need to do is sew the front cover onto a back cover. So choose a fabric for the back cover. And we need to sew them together so that we have the spine of that little book. So put your pieces right side together and stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once those two have been stitched, take those seams and press them open and flat. And put this aside. We will need 2 more pieces, and this is going to make the inside pocket. Take those 2, do a 1/4 inch seam, and press that seam open and flat. Once those 2 pieces are together, we're going to be able to fold that in half and press. We can put that aside. The next thing we need to do is create a little area to put the pins in. This time we're going to take that fabric and fold it so the right side is inside and stitch a 1/4 inch on 2 of the sides. We already have that fold, so we don't have to stitch on that area. But we're going to turn this right side out. So do a little back stitch, pivot, go down and back stitch in this area here. Before we turn this right side out, we're going to put that little piece of foam or batting onto the wrong side. That way when we turn it inside out, it's already going to be there. And we need to fuse that or glue that in the middle of that stitching line. If you don't have anything fusible, you can put a little bit of glue on that and just stick it down until it dries. Once that little piece of foam or batting has been secured on, we're going to trim the ends. By doing that, they're going to remain nice and flat when we turn this right side out. We want to snip both the corners off, but not snipping into the threads, but really close to the threads. Now we can turn this right side out. So that batting just tucked in as we turned it right side out. Now do a little row of top stitching all the way. You don't need to do the open end. This little pin pad needs to be put inside the book. We have 2 more 5-inch squares, and that's going to be the inside of the book. We need to place this little pin pad 3/8 of an inch down from the top. It needs to come down 3/8 of an inch because we need to put that seam allowance on, and we do not want it sticking out of the book. And you'll need at least 3/8 from the sides. You're going to notice that you have a little bit of the fabric sticking out, and that's okay. We're going to trim that off later. So we can now sandwich this in between the 2 5-inch squares and stitch a 1/4 inch using the edge of this fabric. Now we can trim off this little extra and press that seam open. So you're going to have that little blue peeking inside that seam allowance. We have that pin pad that's going to be able to flip from side to side and the pocket. If you'd like, you can do a row of top stitching along that pocket. We can now put the pocket on top of that open fabric. Line up your edges, top stitch down the center, and that's going to give you 2 separate pockets. I want to add one additional thing to this before the bag is closed up. And I want to add a little piece of ribbon. That ribbon is going to hold the scissors on, so the scissors will stay tucked in, and if the scissors go to fall out, this is going to hold them so you don't lose them. Thin piece of ribbon, about 24 inches long. Take the ribbon, fold it in half, and take those 2 raw ends and just tuck them underneath and do a row of stitching just to hold that on. With that ribbon tucked inside that pocket, you're going to be able to put your scissors on the end. Take the end of that loop and put it through one of the holes of the handle. Then take that pair of scissors and put it right through the end of the loop. When you do that, it's going to make a little loop that the scissors are going to be able to be held on with. To take the scissors off, you're going to do the same thing but in reverse. Take the scissors and put it through the loop, and the scissors come right off. We need to make sure the cord does not get in the way for the rest of the stitching. The next thing we need to do is add 2 pieces of ribbon onto the sides of the book. Just take that raw end and stitch it down in the center, and do that to both sides. The inside's all done. We need to work a little bit on the cover before we put the book together. To give the book some stability, we're going to put the 2 4.5-inch pieces of foam or batting onto the back. So the foam is a little bit smaller. This is the fusible foam. You're going to be able to fuse this right on top of that fabric. You want to leave a little bit in the center so that the book is going to have a spine and it can turn. If you have both of these pieces touching, the book is not going to be able to stay closed. So you can use that 1/4 inch as a guide. If you do not want to fuse the batting on or the foam on, you can just stitch this in by hand. We can take this stitching out later. Now with that batting secured on, we're going to be able to layer these 2 together. And we need to put right sides together. Make sure that you have your picture going in the right direction. Pin your layers together, and you need to stitch around. You will need a little opening up at the top to turn the bag over, and I would recommend about 2 inches because you have a lot of fabric that needs to come out. As you pin this together, be sure all of your ribbon is tucked inside and you're not catching anything on the outside. What you're going to want to do is stitch around this foam, so a zipper foot will get you nice and close if you happen to have one. I've left an opening here and it's stitched all the way around. Back stitch on both of these ends to give it some security as you turn this out. We need to trim off those 4 corners and trim off any of the ribbon that's sticking out. Now that all the edges are cleaned up, we're going to be able to turn this right side out. It's just a matter of slowly pulling all of the stuff from the inside to the outside. Once it's turned right side out, we need to close up this opening. You're going to be able to just take that fabric and fold it over top of the batting and then fold that back so it's nice and straight. You can either hand stitch this closed or just add a little bit of glue. If you did the hand stitching to hold that batting in, we can remove those big basting stitches now. We need to do 1 more row of stitching. We're going to stitch right down the center, and it won't matter on what side you stitch. And stitch right down the center. That's going to help the book fold a lot better. You can also give it a little bit of press right here at that spine. Now we can load our little book with our sewing supplies. We can put our pair of scissors on by making that loop and sticking those little scissors right in the pocket. Our sewing needles are going to be able to be put right up in the top. And if we want to have a couple of straight pins, we can add those too. In this little pocket, we can put the thread. We can also use this ribbon to hold the thread on. The loop will go through the center of the spool of thread. We can still put the scissors on by putting that loop through, then putting the scissor through. That pair of scissors is going to hold that thread on. And we can always change it when we need to. Now we're not losing the scissors and we're not losing the thread. We can tuck the thread in one pocket, tuck the scissors into another pocket, and we have the little ribbon or strings so that we can tie the book closed. We now have a great little booklet that we're going to be able to put our sewing supplies in. So if we travel, it's handy and we're not going to lose anything. I'll put a link in the description to the free pattern and to all the different stamps that they have. If you're a stamp collector, this is a lot of fun. And thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.